How might we reimagine our relationship with water? Why do we need to reimagine our relationship with water in the garden? Before we get into it, let's first listen to the Algonquin water song.
Nibi,
Nibi,
Wabo,
Wabo,
Endayan,
Andayan.
Nibi wabo endayen aki mismi nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
We've been used to thinking about water as a resource. That's how we've been trained. That's how we've grown up. We think about water as a noun, a commodity, a thing, that water is scarce. We consume water. We try and control water's natural cycles. We talk about conserving water for future use, but we base our decisions solely on human needs. What if instead we learned from the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg, from the Algonquin water song, that water is life? Nibionje bimadiziwin. Water is alive, a verb. Water is abundant. We protect water to honor life. We respect water's natural cycles. We practice holistic stewardship and base our decisions on the needs of all beings. Rebecca Solnit says that every crisis is, in part, a storytelling crisis. We are hemmed in by stories that prevent us from seeing or believing in or acting on the possibilities for change. Water as a resource is one of those stories. Climate, however, is strongly telling us that we need to reimagine our relationship with water. The predictions are for a vast increase in the amount of flooding, in the amount of heavy rainfalls. This winter, we're experiencing a much greater increase in snowfall. Also, though, more drought, extended periods of drought, and heavier storm activity. Disappearing ecological kin are also telling us that we need to restore our relationship with water. We're in a biodiversity crisis. Lake Lavia from Talking River has us imagine ourselves as Eastern Newt and says that if Eastern Newt could talk to us, they would probably remind us that we all depend on wetlands. Without wetlands, we lose many of our neighbors. Water also loses one of their homes. With increased rainfall events, the absence of wetlands raises the risk of flooding. What if we imagine ourselves in the mind's eye as water, as newt, as dragonfly? Nibionje mima jizuin, water is life. How might we restore our relationship with water? Let's start with the wise words of Robin Wall Kimmerer, who says, "A bay is a noun only if water is dead. When bay is a noun, it is defined by humans, trapped between its shores and contained by the word." But the verb wikwagama, to be a bay, releases the water from bondage and lets it live. To be a bay holds the wonder that, for this moment, the living water has decided to shelter itself between these shores, conversing with cedar roots and a flock of baby mergansers. Because it could do otherwise, become a stream, or an ocean, or a waterfall. So getting to know water is our first step as we reimagine our relationship with water. Do you know the watershed that you live in? Do you know how that watershed connects into the other watersheds of the Great Lakes? The Binigami.org has a wonderful map which allows you to find and position yourself and learn the watershed in your area. And this map also includes or shares the indigenous names for each of these waterways. They say it's our role as human beings to listen to the waters and be their voices. So first, though, we need to get to know water. In the Kingston area, one of those waters is the Cataraqui watershed, the Cataraqui River, which originates in Newborough Lake and was once a rapid-filled winding waterway before it was converted into a navigable canal, so the Rideau Canal, which ends in Kingston. And you can see on this image on the right-hand side all of the dams that hinder its flow along the way and control its flow and affects all of the creatures that once lived here. You can imagine the journey of a raindrop through your watershed. Robin Wall Kimmerer says that every drip, it seems, is changed by its relationship with life, whether it encounters moss or maple or fir bark or my hair, and we think of it as simply rain, as if it were one thing, as if we understood it. I think that moss knows rain better than we do, and so do maples. Maybe there is no such thing as rain. There are only raindrops, each with its own story. What if we could understand water just as well as the moss or the maple? What if we could imagine the journey of that raindrop? So check out the Watershed Journey of a Raindrop by Chesapeake Bay Foundation to see the journey to Chesapeake Bay. The journey in each of the watersheds, however, is different. So you need to learn the journey within your own. We can also use role-playing games to adopt Raindrop's point of view, and this is something that we'll be playing with a little more this year with a multi-species gathering. But maybe this is one of the ways that we can help people imagine themselves as wetland. How can wetland make her voice heard? How can the city understand Dragonfly's point of view? How might we negotiate Beaver's right to stay? This may seem really odd and out there to you, but there is a city in Costa Rica that has done this, and in their city strategic plan, they have a persona of a raindrop and today's experience of that raindrop and the ideal experience of raindrop. Unfortunately, though, the ideal experience is still very human-centered, but it's a huge step along the way towards reimagining our relationship with water, as is Vancouver's Rain City strategy. One slight tweak, I'd say, they still, as you can see here, use the word resource. But what if the strategy, what if each municipality restored rain as a treasured gift? These two streets in, I think that's Vancouver, it could be Montreal. Imagine living in a city with one of these streets near to you. Imagine how water would feel about the ability raindrop would feel about the ability to fall and enter and navigate along these streets and all of the creatures that will come, including the little kids. Something, though, very practical that you can do on your own property is imagine your property as a mini watershed. There's a great set of resources to help you do this. A watershed approach to landscape design by the G3 Green Garden Group. So look those up and map out your property. And you can see with this, you can see with the arrows which way the water is flowing, where the water pools, where the downspouts are, and the roof, that's like the mountain, the highest point in your watershed. Robin Wall Kimmerer says, where will the raindrops land? Where will they go? How will they change on their journey? By observing, studying, paying attention to the granular journey of every individual member of an ecosystem, we can be not just good engineers of water, of land, of food production, but honorable ones. So you can do this within your own property by going out there when it's raining, observing water, drawing this map, and then reimagining what that raindrop could be experiencing if you redesign your property. There's different ways to make relations with land and water, so not just observing how they fall off your roof. Look up indigenous steam, and you'll find a set of water activities that you can do to really bring different lenses towards observing and listening to water. You can map water, you can take a watershed walk, You can listen with your ears, but your whole body, including your heart and mind, asking questions like, what do these sounds tell you about the water, place, and relatives who live here? What other sounds do you hear? What do they make you think, feel, or wonder about? What does the water think about the other sounds? You can learn their past, their present, and restoring their future. So this mini watershed right beside my house, Highgate Creek, this little green space along here, you can see the creek and spaces where the creek disappears. And here it's channeled into a concrete barrier for about a block right by my house. So the past, this would have been free-flowing creek that during spring may flood out wide in its banks, and during the hot summers may contract in. But now it's been channeled, its houses are built on the floodplains, creek silts up, and the fish no longer spawn in this creek where once they did. So I'm trying to learn more about the creek's past. I'm starting to walk the creek more to understand the present experience of creek. And then imagining the future, perhaps one day that concrete channel could be removed. Perhaps we get riparian plantings along the creek so that the water, as it is healthy and protects the creatures of the creek and supports a far greater diversity of life. On your own property, though, you can help protect those watersheds close to you, those creeks close to you, by inviting raindrop to stay. And so once you've done your mapping, you can then find the different ways. And here this gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways for water to stay, including that low spot where too used to being told, oh, you've got to level those low spots. So we bring in soil, fill them up. What if instead we dug them out even deeper, inviting water to stay for longer? Perhaps that water becomes a vernal or ephemeral pool, which then creatures like dragonflies or toads could spawn in. Or if you dug it even deeper and put in a liner and created a pond. So imagine all of the different ways that you can invite raindrop to stay on your property. One of them is to help soil be a welcoming sponge. When it's bare or compacted, when the lawnmower is going over turf grass has very shallow roots, and the lawnmower and the repeated walking compacts that soil. So there's a lot of runoff, and there's not the evaporation that we need. So as you plant, as you replace turf grass with meadow or with pocket forests or other plantings, leave the leaves to fall. Then the soil starts converting, starts healing, starts becoming a sponge filled with life, filled with a diversity of creatures, and absorbs and holds so much of the raindrops that come down. And over the summer, despite drought, that gives a lot more water in the soil to keep the plants, to maintain the plants so that they are nourished even during drought. You can direct raindrop into a restorative pocket wetlands, like this pocket wetland at my son's property. You can see this is a ditch, and in ditch water used to go down this ditch fairly quickly after intense rain. It was turf grass. It was very compacted clay. Now that turf grass we just mostly planted directly into it, a thriving mix of native plants, a lot of sedges and rushes. And now it's a habitat that welcomes all kinds of creatures and holds the rain so it doesn't go rushing along. Consider a plant community's relationship with water. We've been used to thinking about individual plants and not plants within community. So instead of thinking about individual plants that we plant where we want them, think about those areas that you've mapped out. So the low spot could become a pocket wetland with water-loving plants that can handle being, when it dries out. That dry spot along the sidewalk that experiences all kinds of disturbance, like dogs peeing on it, and snow being plowed on it. There is a plant community that will thrive despite that level of disturbance. So by matching that plant community, understanding that plant community's relationship with water, we can reimagine how our land works with water. We can create habitats that restore ecological relationships. So we're not just thinking about the plants, we're thinking about the plants, the water, the habitats, the features like stones and stumps and logs and leaves that are left to rot, and all of the different creatures, the habitats that this microclimates, and all the creatures that this will support, like the toads that need, and the toads and the dragonflies that need that water to spawn, the swallows who feed the dragonflies to their babies. So many creatures that would come. This is the pond in my backyard. I've got two ponds in my backyard. And this one's about 4 years old. You can see there's a lot of rocks along the edges. There's a diversity of plants at different levels. There are stones, and I use the bucket water from the pond, and I only water new plantings, but bucket watering from this pond, at some point last summer, I scooped up a bucket to go bucket water, and it was filled with dragonfly larvae. And I thought, okay, I gotta stop bucket watering. So I put that bucket of water back in the pond and enjoyed the dragonflies that all emerged. Even if you don't have a yard large enough for a pond, you can create a mini pond like this container pond in a half barrel planter. That's Juncus effusus, a native rush. And one of the plants that's great for dragonflies, the larvae, when they're ready to emerge in their adult form, they climb up the rush stems and emerge on them. So even in a small place, you can bring water, you can find places for water to support all of the ecological relationships that water attracts. You can go permeable to help water find their way to soil. So if you look at this diagram on the left, so the water rushes down that driveway, rushes into the little creeks like that one beside my house, picks up all kinds of contaminants, pollution, animal waste along the way. These chemicals go into the creeks and impact the health of the creeks and the health of all of the creatures within the creeks. Instead, by replacing with permeable paving, the easiest of which is what I did, which was just remove the asphalt and I left the gravel. So now I have a gravel driveway. The water then absorbs into the landscape, into the soil, and helps support that soil sponge. And the water now, the raindrops are cleaned. So the ones that do then make their way to the creek, they make it much, much healthier. And let's restore our relationship with water. Water is alive. Water is abundant. Water is a verb. Let's restore our relationship with water. Let's protect water to honor life. Let's respect water's natural cycles. Let's practice holistic stewardship. And you can check out our resources on the Thousand Islands Master Gardeners and Little Forest Kingston websites to help you with your imagination. Thank you.